And he goes, and then they realize they don't. And so he goes, for you, you need to go, all right, so if we look at it and say, this is your, like if you start with expertise. So what's the benefit of having your expertise? What's the detriment of not having your expertise? Like not having your expertise means like you're the jack of all trades. And then I'll go, and then you go to your ideal client. What's the benefit of having it? Or how do you know you have it? How do you know you don't? And he goes, you just do that on the back of a card. And he goes, and that's what you pass out. And he goes, or you could put on the front, how do you know you have it? On the back, how do you know you don't? And he goes, and then put the QR code. He goes, because most people come to you think they have their expertise nailed down. He goes, and then you use this magical word like methodology. And they're like, what's that? He goes, and then you go, well, methodology makes you millions, and without one, you don't make millions. And then they're like, where do I buy that?
Right.
They sell it on Amazon.
Is that a book I can read? Can I write that?
Right. And the thing is, and I learned this recently from my own coach, there are a lot of big coaching firms now that are out there talking about methodology and that you should have one. But they don't know how to teach you how to create one. They don't know how to sit down and actually go in. You know, I got that Master Six Sigma Black Belt. You can't get that without knowing how to create, dissect, understand, implement methodology. Like you cannot. And so a lot of times people will come in, they'll say, oh, I have the methodology. And then I'm like, that's not a methodology.
Right. And see, that's funny. I created DICEs from what I do as a therapist. So like when a client comes in, so DICEs is actually, the D is actually what's the presenting problem.
Right.
As a therapist, what's the presenting problem?
Right.
How do you know? And then the tool part is actually taking them through the process of building out their goals and their strategies, or the treatment plan. That's part of the treatment plan. Then the C in commitment is them actually integrating, like we talked about yesterday, integrating. And are you doing the things that we talked about?
So is integrating applying what they've learned?
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure I understood that's what the same thing was.
Are you integrating and applying those things that you're learning in therapy from what we've identified in your treatment plan? And then the empowerment is, as they start to see that it's working, they do more of it, and they want more of it, and they actually become more involved in their treatment.
Well, it's recognizing your wins in many ways. Like,
absolutely.
Because a lot of times people will do stuff and not recognize,
absolutely,
or even give themselves credit for it.
Right, absolutely. And then the self-care is relapse prevention.
Oh. We don't want this happening again.
Right, we don't want this happening again. So now you've identified, we've done your treatment goals, you're achieving your treatment goals when you start to commit. And the empowerment is that you want to do more of it because now you see that it's working. And then the self-care is relapse prevention. How do we make sure that you are consistent and you keep this going? Right.
That's like with my CEO thinking coach, that she's always going back and asking me the same question. How did you get here? What does it feel like? What happened when you get to this point? And you know, and always really getting me to the point of giving myself credit. I'll tell you something that was really interesting about working with her, is that when we first started working together, she would say, it's so silly right now, she would say at the end of our session, she would go, I'm really proud of you. And I would feel like a little girl. I'm not kidding you, every single time. And then after we'd been working together for a while, she would say, how do you feel? I'm like, I'm really fucking proud of myself. Like, I'd say that. And so it went from her saying it
to you,
to me actually being able to say it to myself.
And
that's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love seeing that transition with my clients. And like especially like the first time they actually come back and they're like, oh my God, I was having a panic attack and I did this and it was like, it went away. And so I was like, who is this? Who is this that I'm talking to? Are you kidding me? And so, and that's, so the same technique is continuing to encourage them. One of the other reasons I think I've been so successful, because I only went full time in 2018. And one of the reasons I think I'm successful is that first session, I give them something they take away something to do to help them manage whatever their presenting issue is. Now, sometimes most of the time there's underlying things that we need to get to, but let's say if I have someone that's coming in with panic attacks, and I've had people even to the point where they have been in the emergency room because they thought that their panic attack was so bad they thought they were having a heart attack. And so I don't end the session until I give them some type of technique to manage that. It may be a breathing exercise, it may be a mindfulness practice, it may be something else, but they get something that first session that they walk away with, and we talk about how to use it and how to implement it. And I think that's part, because a lot of therapists don't do that. They do the traditional, they got to get all the information first, and all the background, and then they start talking about, well, now you're 3 or 4 sessions in, so now the client is like 3 or 4 weeks later, and you still haven't.
And they feel like they haven't gotten anything.
Yeah, they haven't gotten anything, and a lot of times they drop out because they don't. But mine keep coming back because they're like, oh shit, this worked. Right. Let me keep talking to her.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that. So when I do that on a coaching call, right? Because I'm like, because as soon as I talk to somebody on a coaching call, and that's one of the reasons we call it coaching for the sale, it's actually twofold. Like, most people get on the phone with me and they expect that that I'm gonna spend an hour selling to them.
And I have to be honest, that's what I was looking for I met with you.
I'm like, I ain't gonna spend an hour selling to you. I gotta first know that you're coachable, because there's no need for you to get in the program. There is no need for you to even think about being a member of Fyrebrand if you are uncoachable. And most people come in thinking they're coachable, and I'm like, no. Most people actually just want me to validate that everything they're doing is absolutely right, even though they're not being successful. Right? And so a lot of times when I'm working with people, I will get them on that first call, and I'm like, so tell me where you are. Let's talk about your methodology. Let's talk about your ideal client. Let's talk about your expertise. What language are you using? What is kicking your ass right now?
Been there, done that. And the whole thing about you're so smooth with it, because when I met with you the first time, I was like, I know she's selling to me, but it doesn't feel like she's selling to me. Okay. I was like, let me keep paying attention.
I wasn't selling to them. I'm like, well, there was 2 things. Number one, I'm like, you're like a full-fledged doctor. Like, you don't have it just on your name and then like ADD. Like, you are actually a doctor. That was shade. And so, that's a little shade. But no, seriously though, like when I met with you, one of the big things was that I'm like, I gotta know that I can actually help you. I need to really understand what I can help you. And for you, it was that from a marketing perspective, and this happens with a lot of people who are credentialed, who are experts, who are like top of their field. They speak in their language and not in client-centric language. So your clients don't know what the hell you're talking about. You know what you're talking about. It makes sense all the world. But they're like, I don't know what that is.
I gotta go look that word up. I gotta sit with a dictionary just to figure out
the story for our conversation. And so what happened was, when I talked to you, a big part of it was like, okay, let me make sure I understand, number one, where her frustration and struggle is and what she's trying to do. But that's what I do with most people. I'm like, where are you frustrated? Where are you struggling? And how can I coach you? I mean, we're on the phone for an hour and a half. Like, an hour and 15 minutes of it is, let me get something where I can actually help you get past a roadblock right now. So you can go and do your thing, whether you work with me ever again or not. And then usually at the end they're like, well, wait a minute, now that was good, but I want the rest of it. And then I'm like, well, this is what it's cost. If you're interested, let me know. We have financing, we have payment plans, we have this, and that's what it is. And
yeah, and by the time we finished talking, you were like, well, let me know if you. I was like, oh, I need to think about it. Yeah, how do I pay you?
I'm like, go ahead, you can go think about it, you can call me back. Like, I'm never on the phone like, you have to buy this now. I'm like, nah. And I never try to sell people what's not right for them.
Yeah. And that's the thing I loved about you, and because that mirrors, or it's actually duplicative of what I do. I don't try to sell clients. I don't try to convince them that I'm the therapist for them. And sometimes I talk about good fit, because I'm not, either you're that client that I don't want to work with, or I don't know how to help you.
Right.
Because we're not, you know, it's like being a doctor. A doctor specializes in certain areas. So therapists specialize in certain areas. So sometimes it's a client that I can't help.
Right.
So that's.
But I also know, like, I was talking to somebody the other day, and you know, I have packages, you know, all the way from coaching plus mansion retreater, coaching plus yacht, to just, you know, coming to a 3-day boot camp, right? And so I was talking to someone on the phone. Now, considering 3-day boot camp is like the lowest end product that I have, right? Lowest cost product, not lowest end because it's still valuable, but lowest cost product that I have. And I'm talking to this person on the phone, and they're telling me they can afford whichever program that I think is right for them. And I said, I think you just need to come to the boot camp. I really don't think you need to get into this program. I think you need to be in this program. And I'm like, you know what? We do things where we apply certain monies to hiring programs. But I told her straight up, I said, I just don't think you're ready for here. And I'm like, because you have so much work to do. And I said, if you don't get the value out of that 3-day, in other words, if you can't apply what's in this 3-day, then there's really no need for you to go into a higher level program because you're just not ready.
Gotcha.
And I think so many times people are like, I have this $20,000 program, so I'm trying to sell this to everybody. I'm like, no, not everybody can get in that program because I don't want, number one, I don't want everybody sleeping in my mansion. Let's start that part. Number two, I'm not taking everybody on the yacht. Number three, I'm not taking everybody to go kayaking with manatees and come stay at the house with me and let's go to Cirque du Soleil. Like, that's not for everybody. That's just for the somebodies, you know, people who wash up in the morning in my pajamas, you know? And hang out with my family. Come here, family.